Few things in life are more universally dreaded than the awkward silence, a vacuum of sound that most people scramble to fill, utterly oblivious that they are desperately trying to escape the very portal to profound connection. If the notion of leveraging your most uncomfortable social moments for deep intimacy intrigues you, consider subscribing now. We're about to dismantle everything you thought you knew about conversation. This isn't about mastering small talk. It's about mastering the pauses, the pregnant lacunae that often feel like social death, yet ironically hold the keys to genuine closeness. The instinctive human reaction to an unforeseen conversational void is a panicked lunge for any available verbal debris, a desperate attempt to plug the perceived gap, a frantic performance to reassure both self and other that competence, wit, and social grace remain intact. This instinct, however, deeply ingrained, is a fundamental miscalculation. We've been culturally conditioned, particularly in the rapid-fire, perpetually online age, to equate silence with failure, with a lack of engagement, or worse, with outright rejection. The amygdala, our brain's ancient alarm system, doesn't distinguish between a saber-toothed tiger and an unexpected conversational lull. Both can trigger a primal fight-or-flight response, manifesting as the clammy palms and racing thoughts that accompany acute social anxiety. This isn't merely an inconvenience, it's a systemic societal programming error, preventing us from recognizing these moments not as voids to be filled, but as sacred spaces to be held, negotiated, and ultimately cherished. The deep irony is that in our relentless pursuit of smooth, seamless interaction, we often bypass the very junctures where true relational depth could naturally form. The pervasive discomfort we associate with silence isn't some arbitrary social construct. It's a complex interplay of neurobiology and cultural conditioning. Our brains are wired for pattern recognition and predictability, and unexpected silence disrupts this equilibrium, signaling potential danger or uncertainty. Studies in social neuroscience reveal that when a conversation falters, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for executive function, goes into overdrive, attempting to rapidly analyze the situation, predict the other person's thoughts, and formulate a rescue strategy. Simultaneously, regions associated with threat detection, like the anterior cingulate cortex, show heightened activity, registering the silence as a form of social pain or potential rejection. This explains the physical manifestations, the racing heart, the involuntary gulp, the sudden urge to flee or overshare. Culturally, the Western world, particularly in its Americanized iteration, has fostered an almost pathological aversion to quiet. From the constant chatter of news cycles to the perpetual background noise of modern life, we are trained to believe that communication is a continuous flow, an unbroken stream of data exchange. This cultural narrative subtly implies that silence is unproductive, awkward, or even rude.
Think about the pervasive advice given to job seekers. Never leave a pause. Always have a follow-up question. This relentless emphasis on verbal output creates a subconscious fear of the void, transforming a natural ebb in conversation into a terrifying chasm. What if, instead of viewing this discomfort as a bug, we understood it as a feature? What if the very intensity of this internal alarm bell signals not danger, but opportunity? A signpost pointing directly towards the raw, unedited space where authentic human connection truly begins. The transformation of awkward silence into instant connection hinges on a radical reframing, from a conversational failure to a deliberate act of communication. This isn't about enduring silence, it's about wielding it. The mechanical process begins with an internal shift, a conscious decision to resist the instinctual urge to fill the gap. Instead, lean into it. This requires a profound reorientation of your attention, away from the self-conscious internal monologue of "what should I say?" and towards a deeper, more intentional observation of the other person. When silence descends, resist the knee-jerk impulse to break eye contact. Maintain a soft, open gaze, perhaps a slight reassuring nod. Your nonverbal cues become paramount here, communicating openness, patience, and a willingness to simply be in the moment with them. This subtle shift in posture, a relaxed demeanor, an unforced smile, these are not passive responses. They are active invitations. They signal that the silence is not a threat, but a shared space you are comfortable occupying. This deliberate holding of the silence creates a unique psychological pressure, not the aggressive, interrogative kind, but a gentle, expectant space. It allows the other person's thoughts to coalesce, to surface from the chaotic depths of their mind without the immediate demand for articulation. It implies trust that whatever emerges, or doesn't, is perfectly acceptable. This intentional pause doesn't just invite deeper thought, it demands vulnerability, because the absence of pre-scripted dialogue often forces genuine, unpolished truth to the surface. It is in this unedited space that true connection, bypassing superficial pleasantries, begins to form its roots. The strategic application of silence moves beyond mere endurance. It becomes a sophisticated tool for crafting intimacy. Consider it the conversational equivalent of negative space in art. What isn't there often defines what is there with greater clarity and impact. When you deliberately introduce a pause after a significant statement, or when a moment of mutual silence naturally arises, you create a psychological holding pattern. This is not a vacuum to be filled, but a container for shared meaning. Think of it in the context of active listening. True listening isn't just waiting for your turn to speak, it's absorbing, processing, and reflecting. Silence after someone has spoken allows them to elaborate, to self-correct, or to simply let their words resonate. It demonstrates that you value their contribution enough to grant it the space it deserves. Moreover, a strategically deployed silence can act as an invitation for deeper disclosure. When you ask a probing question and then hold the silence, you signal that you are not just seeking a superficial answer. You are inviting a thoughtful, perhaps even vulnerable response. The other person, faced with this patient, non-judgmental quiet, often feels compelled to dig deeper, to share something more authentic than their initial pre-programmed reply. This is where the magic happens. They perceive your silence not as a lack of engagement, but as an act of profound respect and empathy. It's a silent affirmation. I am here, I am listening, and I am not rushing you. This shared space, free from the pressure of constant verbal output, builds a foundational trust that few words, however eloquent, can ever truly replicate. The profound irony of cultivating instant connection through awkward silence is that our most dreaded conversational obstacle proves to be our most powerful relational asset. We are taught that connection is built on constant output, on a relentless display of wit and chatter. Yet the deepest bonds are often forged in the unwritten, unspoken spaces between words. The awkward silence is not a deficiency, it's an opportunity. It is a shared crucible, a moment where both parties are presented with a choice: to flee the discomfort and maintain superficiality, or to lean into it and invite authenticity. When you deliberately hold that space, you are essentially offering a rare commodity in a noisy world: permission to be. Permission for the other person to think, to feel, to be uncertain, without immediate judgment or the pressure to perform. This act of grace creates an emotional resonance far more potent than any carefully crafted sentence. The true payoff is a connection rooted in mutual vulnerability, a bond that transcends mere information exchange and ventures into the realm of shared human experience. This is not about tricks or manipulation. It's about a fundamental shift in perception, recognizing that the most powerful conversations are not always those filled with sound, but those brave enough to embrace the quiet. To master the awkward silence is to master the art of presence, to understand that sometimes the most eloquent thing you can say is absolutely nothing at all, allowing the shared human experience of raw, unvarnished presence to do the talking. Embrace the void. It's where everything truly profound begins.